Hi, everyone. There's a couple people still heading in right now into the room, so we'll get started in just a few minutes. Thank you. Hi, everyone. If we could take our seats so we could call the meeting to order, would be appreciated. Thank you. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending our November 2022 meeting. My name is Brian Graham. I'm the chair of the Fairfax County Democratic Committee. And welcome to the people that are in the room with us. We have about 30 people in the room right now, and others coming. And we have more than 130 online, and still more coming in the waiting room. So, yeah, things are coming together, and I appreciate everyone. We're experiencing hybrid meeting again, and we'll see how well we do. But thank you for indulging us. So, let me write these things if I can. Some reminders, because we haven't done a hybrid meeting in a while. In the room, we will try to alternate to not just to talk to the people in the room, but also to recognize people that are on the phone as well, or on the computer. If you are in the room, there is a microphone all the way in the back, but you could also kind of just wave to me as well. But we would, if we are talking and making some kind of motion or doing some kind of business in the room, we do need to be speaking into a microphone so that everyone online can also hear. And then for those who are online, use the raise your hand feature to indicate that you would like to be recognized to speak. We will be controlling muting a little bit. But if you are not actively speaking, please mute yourself. It will be hard to do all of these things at the same time and look at chat, so we will not be monitoring the chat window. So do not do not try to conduct any business through the chat window. And of course, you can, depending on if you're on the phone or on the computer, use the raise your hand icon. We will automatically lower your hand for you after you are recognized. And now we are in the section for, I want to move, I don't need this. In the agenda, are there any changes to the agenda or minutes? I'm trying to pull up my participant list just to make sure we don't have any requests to be recognized here. Okay, seeing no changes or no requests to be recognized, the agenda and minutes are both approved, and we can move on to the approval of new members. The vice chair of membership has prepared this list of candidates that have been approved by their district committees. If there's no objection, we can approve the voting members and associate members that are listed on the screen. Okay, so I'm hearing that there is a problem from, oh, okay. There's not a problem, okay. Are there any objections to the approval of these members? My understanding is they all have been vetted by their districts. Seeing no objection, the members are, or the election of those members is affirmed, and they are new members. Welcome. And we can move on to introduction of special guests. And the first special guest is Holly Siebold. Holly, Delegate Mark Keem resigned, and we have an open seat in the General Assembly for the 35th District, and Holly is the nominee that won the caucus that we ran for that. So the floor is yours, Holly.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you all for taking the time to hear me out tonight. I am running on January 10th. And early voting has already started, and we need as much support as we can get. Volunteers, if you want to join our team, you can visit our website and sign up there. I also wanted to speak tonight because I wanted to introduce you all. This is Sophia, and she's my new field director who just started yesterday, so it's a little overwhelming for her. But we get it started right away. Sophia actually just came to us from the Lauren Underwood campaign and outside of Chicago. She actually lives up the street from me too, so it's a great connection to the 35th District. And she's also worked for DPVA and Northam over the years, so she's very familiar with field work. And so she's outstanding and wonderful, and feel free to contact her and let her know that you're willing to volunteer. As I mentioned, early voting has started, so we need people at the polls to help greet voters. We haven't had a huge influx of early voters yet. 10 people, I think. A couple more. So yeah, get the word out to your friends as well that early voting is a great option. And there will be two other, or that's at the Government Center. There'll be two other early voting days. One is on New Year's Eve, actually, and that will be at the Providence Community Center, which is in the district. So please let people know that's another option, and it's closer to the 35th. And the other is the following Saturday, which is the 7th. Yeah, so those are two other good options. We need volunteers for those polls. And then the day of, and I know the districts that are part of the 35th, which are Providence, Springfield, and Hunter Mill, are working to staff the precincts on that day. So if you can help out for an hour or two, please let us know, and we'll get you all set up. And the other plea is for money. So if you can donate, that would be really great. I have to raise a lot of money in a short amount of time, really just to let voters know through mail that there is an election and through digital. So as we get closer, we want to increase our digital presence so that people don't forget to vote. I mean, we live in a very democratic district, but you know, it's a special election and you never know what could happen. So as much as you can donate and give will be very much appreciated. So we can let voters know that there's an election and keep this seat blue. So thank you all for your time and let us know if you have any questions afterward. Oh, also I brought yard signs if any of y'all live in the 35th. So please feel free to take one. We have lots more. And if you plan on canvassing, I also have t-shirts. So happy to get you into a pink shirt if you so choose. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Holly. I want to just reinforce how important a special election is. I know we can always kind of assume or take for granted that in a seat like this, we're going to win it, but a special election is a low turnout election. And, you know, if the Republicans have any opportunity, it is this, right? So across FCDC, we're asking outside of FCD2, but across FCDC, I would ask you to find a day to knock on doors or to contribute if you can't do that. Because the biggest thing really is just connecting with voters and getting them to the polls. There is a request also if anyone has is close to Vienna and has supporter housing available, you know, talk to us after the meeting. There is potential other help, but they need somewhere to stay. So we need to make that happen because we need to have a successful campaign. Okay. Next, I think we have. Let's see. I guess I'll share my screen again. Next we have. Who do we have? Steve, I think. Oh, those are spoilers. Steve Iscano, our Commonwealth's attorney. Steve, coming up here.
Hello, everybody. I am really, really glad to see everybody here. I'm glad to see the people in the Zoom room, but if you were on Zoom, guys, you're missing out on the energy in the room. We got people in holiday sweaters. Everybody is here kicking and having a good time. And in the spirit of a good time, look, we got a lot to celebrate as Democrats. I know a lot of people in this room and on this Zoom did a lot of good work, not only up here in Northern Virginia, but they went out to Prince William. They helped Elaine Lauria. We got a lot to be proud of. But the work continues. Of course, we got Holly, who's next up on the list. We got to get her elected, which means we're in election season. Which, unfortunately, guys, we got to start thinking about Republicans and their lies about crime. Yeah, you can boo them. It's great. Because look, Virginia. We're always in election season, and we know that coming up this year, this time next year, Republicans, they're going to try every dirty trick in the book. They've already started. And true to form, one of the things they're going to talk about is crime. They're going to lie about crime. And it's not just in my race. It's going to be at the chairman's race. It's going to be on the board of supervisors race. It's going to be in delegates and senators. Hell, if they could figure out a way to talk about crime for soil and water, they would do that too. But the fact of the matter remains, crime in Fairfax County is actually down. It's one of the few jurisdictions that is the case. And we are the safest jurisdiction of our size anywhere in the country. We ought to be really, really proud about that. And I know that most of us here are, or all of us here are. But I've heard from a lot of you, and you've come to me and said, Steve, I'm worried about the Republican lies on crime. Where can I get the real information? I've heard it enough. So what I did is I actually put together a little page on my website, which Jack, I think you're going to put up on the screen, and we're going to drop a link into the Zoom room. Go stevedescano.com/results, right? stevedescano.com/results. You're going to see a bunch of data there, data that you can use to talk about the true story. You're going to see charts that show how crime is down in Fairfax County since 2019, almost 10%. You're going to see that even though you're going to see that we are the safest jurisdiction of our size, you can compare our murder rate to the murder rate of every jurisdiction across the country. Over 1 million people, you'll see we top the list. You know, you hear Jason Miyares and Glenn Youngkin talk about, well, Fairfax County, Northern Virginia, crime's out of control. Folks, yeah, you can, it's funny, right? Laugh about it. You're going to see the data that shows, you're going to see the chart that shows that, as a matter of fact, the murder rate in Virginia is more than 4 times the murder rate here in Fairfax County, right? And then you're going to have some data that points you towards showing how our bond decisions in our courthouse lead to keeping us safer in our community, as well as how all the reforms that we've all invested in lead to keeping us safe. So I want to put that out there as a resource for all of you, because as we know, look, this is a big county, and we all know that the people in this room, people listen to you all. They know that you're informed, they know that you're engaged. And as a matter of fact, I am counting on you. The other elected officials are counting on you that when you hear your neighbor say something that's wrong, or or repeat a Fox News talking point without thinking about it, we're relying on you to jump all over and tell them what the real story is. And if we do that enough, then we got nothing to worry about, because people will get the truth. So I'll tell you, I am counting on all of you. If you need any more information, reach out to me directly. I'm happy to give it to you. But if you go to that website, you will get the true story about what is going on. And when you see the true story, you will recognize that that is something that we as Democrats shouldn't be running from. We shouldn't be embracing it, trumpeting it, and challenging anybody who gives a false narrative that doesn't match up with actual data. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Brian, back to you, buddy.
Thanks, Steve. I laugh, you know, I might go on Twitter every now and then, but just the people that in this country like believe that cities are war zones right now, right? Like, I mean, they believe that about Fairfax County, that, you know, you have to be out in an armored vehicle to be safe in Fairfax County, and obviously it's not true. So it's just, it is what it is. Okay. Our last special guest for today, I'm going to make sure that he's present, and he is Delegate Dan Helmer. Can you make sure that we can hear from Delegate Helmer?
All right, I think I'm. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, that's great. Well, it's hard to come after. Hard to come after Holly and Steve, but I hope you'll indulge me for a moment. First of all, before I talked about a few things I wanted to chat about, I just wanted to, on a sad note, for those who didn't know it, Congressman Don McKeechin lost a long battle with cancer last night and passed away. And in that, we've lost a long time and dedicated service to the Commonwealth. And so if you didn't know that, many of us are thinking about him and his family and his staff, and hope you'll keep him and his supporters and friends in your prayers this evening. So for those who didn't know that, I wanted to let folks know. On a separate note, I just wanted to visit today. Of course, always proud to be a member of FCDC, and happy to join you this evening. I'm currently serving in the role of vice chair for outreach for the House Democratic Caucus, and we are very excited to talk about the work we have in front of us in 2023, because we have an incredible chance to build on all of the great work that you all did and helped us do to reelect our Congress people, to get Don Beyer and to get Jerry Connolly and to get Jennifer Wexton back into Congress, and to use all of the Democrats we turned out to drive a Democratic majority. We are at 48 seats in the House of Delegates right now. We came up short of being 50-50 by fewer than 200 votes. As we look at the map, we almost have 60 seats that Biden won. And so with that, the first step on that is we've got to elect Holly. I'm so excited about her candidacy. As those of you who know her, I'm sure know, she's just been an incredible advocate for women and girls in Virginia, and a dedicated public servant long before she ran for office. And so couldn't be more excited to have somebody of her caliber. As you've already heard, a special election can be very weird. And so we need to make sure that every single Democrat knows about the election and turns out. So on January 10th, it's going to be a quick turnaround. We elect her January 10th. On January 11th, she'll be down there serving with us, and we need her vote, because you should see some of the things that Republicans are trying to do. And we need her down here because she's clearly a part of the path to 51. I'm going to ask Kat Thames, who's on here, who's my chief of staff, to just drop. I know she announced her how you can get in touch, but we also have her volunteer link, so we'll put it there. And if you can volunteer for Holly, knock some doors, give some money, that would be great. Just really quickly, let's talk about what Glenn Youngkin is trying to do in Virginia. He's tried to turn back the clock on our efforts on climate change. He's put in tip lines to rat out our teachers, tried to remove teaching about Martin Luther King as a holiday from the curriculum. He has said he'll sign any bill that would turn back the clock on abortion in Virginia. There are real reasons that we need to get to 51. We need to take on learning loss and actually take education seriously, support our teachers, support our classrooms. We need to tackle the cost of healthcare, which is rising in Virginia, and take meaningful steps to make sure that middle-class folks can live a middle-class lifestyle in the wake of inflation. We need to pass a constitutional amendment to protect access to safe and legal abortion. And we have a governor right now who looked at what happened at the University of Virginia and down in Chesapeake at the Walmart. And when Democrats said, look, we are ready to come and talk together about meaningful steps we can take on gun violence prevention, he said, now is not the time. And I just wonder if in the wake of those tragedies, in the wake of gun death across our Commonwealth, it's not the time. When will it ever be the time? And we have a chance to actually pass meaningful additional reforms, like a 3-day wait period, which in the Walmart shooting would have meant that shooter could not have been in crisis, bought a gun on the same day and used it. And we have real opportunities to make positive change here. So really encourage you to get involved and stay involved with all of our races. Elect Holly, help us both in Fairfax County and around the Commonwealth to elect great Democrats. We have a real shot at getting the majority. And as part of our efforts to kick off that, Abigail Spanberger is actually going to be joining us in McLean, and we'll drop the link as well in the chat on Friday at 7:30 p.m. To talk about the fight we have in front of us, and would welcome any of you to attend. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for all of your efforts. And we look forward to seeing you in 2023 on the path to us taking the majority. Thanks, Brian.
All right. Thanks, Delegate. Next, I lied. I would like to recognize Laura Jane Cohen from school board member from Springfield. Let's give her a hand.
Thanks very much. It's so nice to get to see everybody in person or virtually, something we've become slightly accustomed to in school board. I just wanted to take the opportunity to announce, if you have not heard, that I am running for the House of Delegates, the new 15th district that is an open seat, no incumbent there, and we'll be hosting my kickoff on December 10th. From 10 to 12, so won't interfere with FCDC. You can just party all day, start with brunch, and then come down. So I'd love to see your faces there. And if you're interested, you can check out laurajanecohen.com/kickoff to find out how to come help me kick it off. And I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Making sure I didn't miss anyone. Okay. Oh, I did. Okay. Mayor and Mayor re-elect of the town of Herndon, Sheila Olam.
Thank you. I'm here wearing my Silver Line Metro card because we opened, and I was working on that since the 90s when I moved here, and they told me it would open in 2000. I never believed that I would get to cut the ribbon. So as mayor, I got to be out there and cut the ribbon. It's very exciting. I've been to Ashburn for lunch. So now you guys just jump on the Metro, come out to visit us. We're not that far anymore. It's wonderful. We've got our bike lanes going in. Van Buren's opened up with bike lanes, sidewalk, extra sidewalk areas. The Metro bus bays are there. So things that we've been working on for the past 10 plus years. And thank goodness, Jerry Conley's been there every step of the way, the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. You've heard of NVTA, the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. We've had funding from them. So it takes a lot of planning to get things done in a town and working with all of our other elected officials. So look forward to working with all these guys some more. And I'll be down at VML pushing for things like decriminalizing marijuana, which all the towns and counties and cities pushed hard to help get that decriminalized. So we're always working with our elected officials at the state level as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Our next order of business is the treasurer's report. And that will be coming from Nadia Golding, who's working her way up here. Yeah, let's give her a round of applause. Nadia was FCDC treasurer when I was born. 10 years ago. I'm 10 years old. She was there, yes.
All right, Brian. Brian was a very young member of FCDC. Well, the treasurer's report, some of you may have it in front of you, others may be seeing something on the screen. The first page is basically a summary I prepare for the FCDC meetings of the more detailed stuff that's in the back. For those of you who are not familiar with our fiscal year, our fiscal year goes from April 1st to March 31st. So we are now almost 3/4 of the way through our fiscal year. And if you look at where we stand, we really haven't raised as much money as we had hoped, and we don't look like we're on track to do that. We haven't spent as much money, luckily, but we are in a position where FCDC now has $41,000 in the bank. Our district committees are doing much better, but $41,000 is really low for us. So I just want you guys to know that and then come support us when we have our holiday party, the road to Richmond, and we're going to have a straw poll. So we have some things that we're planning for raising money, and you'll hear more about those later. The second page, if you want to go to that, is basically tells you where the district committees stand. And you're probably not going to be able to see it in great detail, but any district committee chair who wants to see their ledgers, they can ask me. Altogether, the district committees have 114,000 in the bank. So they're sort of our, I guess, good highlight of our treasurer's report. And in the back of the treasurer's report, for people who are here and have the whole detailed things, it'll show you where we spend our money and where we raised our money and all the details. And I know that we don't want to go into all of that now, but maybe somebody has a question. If they do, I'll be happy to answer. Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks, Nadia. I mean, I want to highlight a couple of things that we just talked about. $41,000 for operations for FCDC is a drastically low number. But the number of times that we've gone under $100,000 over the last decade, when I was born, is very, very few, right? So it's unusually low. This is always the year. This is the year where typically FCDC goes into a deficit. If you look at 4 years ago, they actually budgeted to lose $70,000 in this year, and they ended up losing about $13,000. So we do have lots of things that we're working on. Obviously, we hired Alexa to help do this, right? And a lot of the things that we had in our plan for expenses are things that didn't materialize as well. It's not like we hired we didn't have Jack and Alexa for the full fiscal year, right? So, but there are some things that we just always have to do, like like rent, like having FCDC headquarters is an expensive thing to do, right? And having staff is an expensive thing too. So, I'm thankful to all of you. So I'm heading into my treasurer or my chair's report. But I just want to say, I mean, I didn't want to start my chair's report talking about the budget. But there are lots of opportunities to help FCDC over the next couple months. One, if you're not a sustainer, consider joining to be a sustainer. That's a regular donation, starts at $10 a month. Something like that. If all of our members were sustainers of FCDC, we would be in a lot better financial shape than we are. But there's other options, right? We have a holiday party on December 10th. We have the road to Richmond at the beginning of next year. We're going to have a straw poll and a bazillion candidates running in primaries next year, right? So there are opportunities to give for fundraising events as well. It is a weird thing that I've realized as FCDC chair based off of the way that we operate fiscally, where the districts raise money, give a little bit of it to FCDC, and then kind of do what they want with the rest of it. Some districts are more successful than others. And the districts that probably need the most help are the ones that are generally not the most successful in fundraising money, right? So in this year, as an example, some of those districts didn't get things that they probably needed, door hangers, whatever else, right? Like districts paid for some of those things, whereas other districts didn't get them because they didn't have the money. And that doesn't seem, to me, that doesn't seem like the right way to run FCDC. But I think that's going to take some hard discussions about how we operate to figure out some of those. But we have some other ideas as well, and you'll see probably a relaunch of the sustainers to get more interest and engagement in that, and some other programs that we're working on to help raise more money for FCDC as well, because next year is the year. I mean, I want to say, usually this point I get to say I'm thankful for all of you. We did a great job, and we did this year, right? And I'm so appreciative of all of you, and we get to take a little bit of a break before next year, but now we have a special election, so there's not much of a break. And then we're going to head right into primary season. So we're in it, folks. We're in it, and we're going to need help across the board. So I really appreciate your consideration of that. I feel like all the other things I wanted to say have already been said by special guests, so I'm not going to drag it out. But I do just like our thoughts for Congressman McEacham's family, and for the 4th. And crime and all kinds of other things, right? Or the lack of crime. But I am really appreciative of everyone, and here we go into next year. I think at this point we can move into Vice Chair Committee and Caucus reports, and I believe I'm recognizing Stephanie Sedgwick first, who is. I guess I can share my screen again. Stephanie Sedgwick is the first vice chair of FCDC. She is the regional vice chair for the North, but for this year, as of this moment, she is the first vice chair or ranking vice chair of FCDC. So, Stephanie.
Okay, I'm here. Okay, Brian, I just want to thank everybody. The Running for Office 101 training session on November 19th went really well. We had about 35 participants. We had many of our elected officials there helping coach the would-be candidates. And I want to thank Jack for all his help, and Rachel Rifkin and Maggie who came to help. I also want to talk about the foster kid gift drive. So we're right in the swing of things again with the foster kid gift drive. We have 180 kids this year who've been identified for getting gift bags. And we're also hoping to raise extra funds. Our extra funds last year went for things like buying a foster teenager a sewing machine so she could pursue her passion for fashion. One kid wanted to join the rec center so they could work out. Eyeglasses, international calling cards so that they could call their families. Just a ton of things that they get to buy the kids because our money comes unencumbered. So they can use it for whatever the kids need. So I just am going to put in the chat the link to the foster kid gift drive and ask everybody to give as generously as they can. Any size gift is appreciated. And just thank you to everyone who's already given.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Are there other? That was the only report that I knew of ahead of time. Are there any committee? Well, I take that back. There might be one other one that I know of. Please raise your hand if you would like to be recognized for a report. Paul Jameson. We'll get you, Peggy, too. Paul Jameson will be first vice chair of FCDC as of January 1st next year. But go ahead, Paul.
Yes, to echo what everybody has said before, this is the year coming up, and it begins with the January 10th special election. But this is the year that we have to do from everything. And FCDC is going to be doing more than it's normally done because we're just basically it. And this year coming up, we're going to be concentrating on the school board races because they have gotten the short shrift of many elections before, and we're going to do a special effort because Republicans have said, oh, Glenn Youngkin won because of education. Therefore, we're going to emphasize education, and we're going to fight back, and we're going to actually take the offensive against the Republicans and their actual agenda, which is to destroy public education. And we're going to tout how good the Fairfax County schools are and totally support our school board candidates. So once the endorsement process is completed on May 20th, we'll be kicking off things, but there'll be a lot that we'll be doing between now and May 20th of fundraising, preparing other things. I put together a skill set team of people who did things in their day jobs like research or communications and things like that. We're still looking for someone whose day job is media relations. If you would like to have me bug you for things, because everybody who's been on my skill set team knows that if you told me you're going to do something, I'll keep bugging you till you did it. And I'm looking forward to working with a lot of people to get this thing done this year. FCDC is not just canvassing or knocking on doors. There are other things you can do. We have a very talented group of people here that can do many things that will help out. So you will all hear from me over the course of the year coming up. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. It may be counterintuitive a little bit to say that we're raising money for the school board to elect a Democratic school board now when we don't have candidates, but we are fighting the Youngkin agenda, and we know the Youngkin agenda starts with schools, right? So I think it's fairly simple. We are going to work hard to re-elect a Democratic school board, and that's super important for us. Peggy Morrison, co-vice chair of voter registration and education, is next.
That saved the really quick introduction. I want to take 2 seconds to tout my committee's horn. Oh, I want to tout my committee's horn. Rich Weiss and I took this committee over this year, and I can't begin to tell you how proud I am of the people that stuck with us and those that joined us. But voter registration showed up 36 times at 5 different campuses during this election cycle, including on election day. We were at Nova Annandale, George Mason, Nova Woodbridge, Nova Loudon, and one other place. So we are always looking for bodies. But what happened with us is we realized our candidates were pretty safe. And so our committee said, specific people said, we need to go help some other people. So we've not only gone outside of our comfort zone, we've also gone outside of our county. We now have Loudon Democrats who are now going to start campaigning on their campuses next time, trained by our folks. So that's all I have to say. And I'm a proud mama.
Okay, I'm not seeing the hand that I expected to be raised. We are Melanie Marin in chat said we do have school board candidates now. I mean, we do, obviously. We don't have democratically endorsed school board candidates quite yet. So and I explained this in the candidate training, right? FCDC will be here, and we have some resources available to candidates, but until you become the nominee or the endorsed candidate, it's not our job to elect you. So just putting that out there. Okay, I thought I was going to get a report from Maritza Zermino from the Latino caucus, but maybe not. Maritza, are you there? Okay, are there any other reports?
Brian?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, technical problem. I just want to say that the Latino caucus is gonna meet on January, the last Thursday of the month because on November, December, our meetings, they're conflict with our holidays. So just want to say that if anybody is interested in activate the Latino community, please send me an email to latinos@fairfaxdemocrats.org. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Some people online are having trouble hearing when people are talking to the microphone, so I think we're trying to figure some of that out. So I apologize if it's way too loud in the room. I think talk loud, but okay. I think that's it for reports then. Let's continue. That's how they talk into the microphone. Okay. I still have this up here, fairfaxdems.org/gift, if you'd like to participate in the foster kid gift drive. And now we're on to new business. And the first order of business, you want to come to a microphone? You can come up here. I'll recognize Aaron Yohai, Chair Braddock.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to try and speak up, so I hope everyone at home can hear me. I was seeing some chat comments earlier that you're having trouble hearing, so I hope you got this. I move that the Fairfax County Democratic Committee select primaries as the method of nomination for all partisan offices for the November 7th, 2023 general election.
There's a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Let's see. There's a hand raised. Marv. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let me go back. Marvin Sue have their hand raised. I'd like to recognize them.
Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to know, are the school board and soil and water board considered as nonpartisan elections and the others are partisan elections?
Yes, so all partisan offices includes, so this is, I guess, using the definition in the code. And now we're getting echo. Maybe that's from you. Okay. But that includes, and I guess I will clarify. We are required by the party plan to have primaries for state senate and House of Delegates. So we're really just affirming that choice, I guess, by the party. But we do technically have options for sheriff, Commonwealth's attorney, clerk of the court, and board of supervisors. So those are the partisan offices. The nonpartisan offices are members of the school board, both at large and district, and members of the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District. Well, they're directors. Maybe not directors. They're not members. They're directors on the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District Board. Okay. Is there any other discussion? Not seeing any other discussion. Are there any objections? Can we adopt without objection? Seeing no objections, the motion passes, and we will be having primaries next year in June for these offices. Just a editorial note: we appoint chairs of nominating committees for a lot of these things. Some of them are district chairs for district offices, but for state senate and house, there's someone who has to receive paperwork that lives in that district. So if you get a call about potentially being involved with that process, now you know what that is. Maybe, I don't know. Don't answer the phone. Okay, the next topic of discussion is from a report out from the Caucus Rules Task Force. So I've had some calls and some discussion, some worry that I guess we're doing this too quickly, or adopting things too quickly. But I will say that we sent out with notice kind of copy of draft rules for this process. There was a lot of discussion that happened by this task force over like a dozen meetings. that were all open and available to the public. And I would say not many non-members of the task force attended such meetings, but there were a lot of discussions about, do we change back from a caucus? And we ended up with no. There was a lot of discussion about how do we actually do this? Do we have a caucus where we have locations in every district on the same day, and the number of people that you need to do that and do that well and successfully, and to do it logistically well, like we do caucuses, seemed a bit daunting. So the rules, just in some summary, as the chair of this task force, are to require, first, you have to qualify to be a candidate. And the qualifications set up for that involve getting a number of signatures from FCDC voting members. So the idea behind that is that FCDC voting members would have would be able to scrutinize the candidate and decide whether they should even be an option for people to vote on first. So that's the first kind of the first thing. There's also a filing fee, a form, and potentially a questionnaire from the education committee, as well as I think we generally ask for a resume from the soil and water candidates. But that's the qualifying side. The next side of it is that people can vote, people who are registered to vote in Fairfax County, let's say who are qualified to vote in Fairfax County, can participate in this process. They would have to sign the Democratic, let's say, oath or pledge, the thing that says that I'm a Democrat, I intend to support the Democrats, and I believe in democratic principles or values. I think it says values. The way that we would do this, though, is online. So the idea is that there's a period of time where people can sign up to say that they want to vote in this process, and then that closes. That gives us time to review, to make sure those people are qualified voters, and also some time to scrutinize the people to see if they, if they are members of the Republican committee, as an example, they probably should be scrutinized, right? But that gives some opportunity to review that list, to decide who the qualified participants in the caucus are, and then all of those people would receive an electronic ballot, and we would have some options for assistance for people that would have trouble with electronic ballots. But that's, in summary, what we're talking about. There's a couple things that have to be done per the bylaws. One, we need to make an affirmative decision to endorse in the race. You may have remembered we had a robust discussion about this in the town of Herndon a couple months ago, right? So we have to make, at some point we have to make the decision about whether or not we are endorsing in this race. Two, we need to adopt a set of rules that would govern a caucus. So if we do decide to do this, FCDC bylaws require that we have a caucus of voters. So I would also note that the task force was also tasked with considering whether or not the bylaws should change, and there were no changes recommended from the task force. So I know I've said a lot, but I wanted to give some clarity about what the document is, because it's like an 8-page document and I doubt everyone read it. But now I would like to open the floor for discussion, or maybe for some action, because I have heard a few minor concerns that have been brought up about the rules at this point, and I'm looking at Mr. John Farrell, who has his hand raised.
Question to find out the thought process. On page 1, paragraph 6, each candidate for, I believe it says nomination, but I think you mean endorsement. Paragraph 6 on page 1. You did mean endorsement. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. On page 3, and this comes up in a couple of different places. On page 3, it says that in order to be considered a candidate for the Fairfax County School Board for the at-large seat, one would need to obtain the signatures of 30% of the FCDC voting members. My understanding is that as we stand here tonight, we have 802 voting members. That was the number I got from our executive director. So that would mean a candidate would have to go around and get 240 signatures of members in order to be considered for endorsement. I contrast that with state code, that in order to be on the ballot, all they got to do is get 125 signatures. So we're asking for people to come up with twice as many. I have further inquiry on that, but could you explain the thought process for that?
So the task force had a lot of discussion on this. I think the initial idea was to have set numbers. And then there was a concern, and there were concerns throughout the process that we were going to run into a situation like we had 4 years ago, where a candidate or candidates were going to recruit people to be members of FCDC to kind of move the targets. And that, I think that was the intent. Looking at the numbers now and doing the math, I don't know how we got to 30%. I think it probably makes more sense somewhere like 15%, but that was the thought process behind that. But I do agree that 240 is I mean, it's basically double the requirements that the state requires to be a candidate on the ballot. So it seems slightly high, I would say, especially based off the discussion in the special election that just happened. Do you have continued questions? Okay, before I get to you.
On page 5 of the document, it says that, and I'm contrasting page 5 with page 6. It says that in selecting our at-large candidates for endorsement to the school board, the endorsees for the at-large school board membership, that we would use a first past the post arrangement, which means whoever gets the plurality wins. Unlike what we're proposing, the task force is proposing to do in the districts, which is the task force is proposing to use IRV voting. And I'd like to understand why the difference.
So there was a lot of discussion about instant runoff voting. I think generally, I mean, I believe that instant runoff voting is a great tool and makes a lot of sense in general in getting a good candidate, a single candidate. The problem is, and if you recall, I know the person who asked this question was involved in discussion about this 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, we decided to do first past the post. So we spent a fair amount of time discussing how instant runoff voting works for multi-winner situations. And the way that most multi-winner instant runoff voting systems work, well, the primary method is called single transferable vote. And not to get super down into the details, but that basically means that you have one vote that gets allocated potentially to more than one candidate, but only if your first choice candidate is already selected. So in effect, the voters would not actually be voting for 3 people, or most voters would not actually be voting for 3 people. They would only be voting for one person, or one person and a fraction of some person. So I think there was concerns about that. And maybe if Greg Brandon has anything to say about this, because we had very, very healthy discussion on this, and we ended up that the simplest thing to explain and understand that is similar to what the actual election is, and that gives everyone 3 votes, is the first past the post option. I'll repeat it. What is it? Why did we choose one versus the other? Or why did we have one? We have 2 different systems. I think the desire still was to use instant runoff voting, and we agreed that it was ideal for one candidate, in a race where you have one winner, but confusing when you have multiple winners. So that's why we ended up with two different systems. But also that really only applies if you have more than two candidates running in a race. Stuff. Okay. I'll recognize school board member from Providence District, Carl Frisch.
Welcome to Providence District. Couple things, and first, I appreciate all the work that went into this. I know there were many, many meetings and many, many hours. And I will speak more directly into the mic so the people online can hear me. Some general concerns. I will be the first to admit as a school board member that I found out about this today, even though it was given to the broader FCDC community a week ago, because I don't read the agendas every time a meeting call comes out. So shame on me. I think that's probably true of every school board member. So many of us learned about this at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And so we've had that time to read it through. Some general thoughts. I think that, so one thing that Brian didn't spend much time on was the voting part requiring pre-registration. I think every FCDC member who is a registered voter, remember, we don't require you to be a registered voter to be an FCDC member, but I think every FCDC member who is a registered voter should automatically be pre-registered to vote in the caucus. I think that's important for two reasons. One, those are the folks that are going to be helping to elect this school board. And two, it takes a significant burden off of the candidates to go out and get the likely people who are going to pre-register in the first place. And it allows us to skip that step and go right to campaigning for those votes. Secondly, there needs to be a process for appealing pre-registered voters. If we happen to see 75 or 100 strong Republicans in Van who have pre-registered for the caucuses, and they've signed their little pledge saying that they're going to be Democrats, I think we all know what that means. And there should be a formal process that we all live by, right? Like there's a little tribunal, they vote on my argument against somebody, and if I lose, I lose. But if I succeed, they don't get to vote. So I think that needs to be written into the rules. We need more clarity around the signature requirements, which has already been addressed. Thank you for bringing that up, John, because that is a big hurdle, I think. And I know that some of the magisterials have moved to hybrid meetings, but the calendar shows most of the meetings still being virtual. So that is a hurdle of getting those signatures in the first place. People are going to need a little bit more time to gather them. Or you can do what we did in the old days and go door to door for signatures in the winter. It's fun. It's really great. I think because of these questions, and because most of us in this room are seeing this for the first time today, I think we should delay voting on this until January. However, I'm not going to make that motion because I don't want to cut off the conversation here. I know many people probably have other comments that they'd like to make, and I'd love to hear what other people have to say. The only other thing I would have to say, I think that covers my initial first pass concerns. Thank you, everybody who had anything to do with this.
Thank you. We do have a couple of hands that came up online after the people in the room raised their hands, so I will go through them. Looks like first is Elizabeth Lower Bash.
Okay, there. Unmuted. Hi, thank you so much. I guess I'm just concerned that there doesn't seem to be a process for validating that the person registering is actually the registered voter, that you're checking that people exist in Van, but you can look people up online. You can, from Van, you can see all the registered voters, and people could make fake email addresses and register on people's behalves. And I do think we need to figure out a way to prevent that if we're going to have this system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Francis Kinnavan. Francis, are you there? Oh, there we go.
I'm sorry. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
My question, and I'm sorry if I'm coming to the issue very late, but just from briefly, what's been the practice in the past with respect to endorsements for these offices by the committee? And if it has endorsed in the past, what was the process then? I'm trying to get a sense of the rationale for this process, because I think the more complicated we make the campaign for Democratic candidates or candidates that have our values, we force them to run 2 campaigns or 1.5 campaigns. One is to get the endorsement, and then the more important race to people who might not against Republican candidates. So I'll stop there. I'm just not familiar with the history of the issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll answer that as quickly as I can. Previously, the endorsement section of the FCDC bylaws, which is on the screen now, said that for endorsement of candidates within a supervisor district, so that's all the district school board members, that the district committee would get to decide those things. That also applied to things like the town of Herndon that was entirely within a district committee. And the members, FCDC members of that district committee got to decide who were the endorsed candidates pending FCDC's approval of that recommendation. Where this gets complicated is 4 years ago, where we did not have an actual cap of FCDC members in effect. So candidates realized this and recruited more than 1,000 people to be members of FCDC to vote in this process. It caused problems with quorum, where we had more than 2,000 members of FCDC, and where a percentage of them were not attending our meetings. So it got very complicated, and as a result, after that situation 4 years ago, the bylaws were changed to what we have now. I guess I went over those things. There was no cap. District recommend their own candidates. The at-large and countywide seats were decided by the full committee. So typically we would have a separate vote at an FCDC meeting for those, although we had some early voting, multi-day voting for that in 2019. Before that, it was generally within a single meeting. So that's a little bit of the process. And of course, we've changed it now so that if we decide to endorse, we must have a caucus of eligible voters for that process. So thanks for that question. I think in the room now I have I have 2 people. You can make your way up here, I guess. First, I'll recognize Laura Jane Cohen, member of the school board from Springfield.
Thank you. I think just initial pass. I know that Herndon, you guys did it electronically, but I do have to say, especially after the election with Carl and Holly, I mean, we did have people who came and manned those places. We had more participation, more turnout than we've ever had, to the best of my knowledge, and an endorsement. So I don't understand why we would go online only. It seems much harder to police who is actually casting the votes. And so I guess I would love more clarity on that.
So there was, I think there are some concerns about that. I think the primary concern, or the initial idea of the task force, was how do we run a good caucus effectively and allow as much participation as possible? And you start thinking, what is the simplest way to do this? And the simplest way to do it is to have one location and have everyone go there and vote, right? Like what we did previously for a caucus for sheriff, as an example, right? But for a county of our size, participation was not that high of the people making that decision, right? So that is one option. Then you think about, well, do you add extra days of early voting so that you can move that around the county to allow people to do that? But we fundamentally got to the point where we believed that it was important to have one location, at least one location per district. Right, so we're talking about 9 places in Fairfax County on a single day. So we're already talking about probably at least 90 volunteers to do that, and maybe more, which is, I mean, we do more than that on election day, so it's possible. But then you get into complications of, can you vote at any location, or do you have to vote at your district's location? And we want this to be simple for people to participate in. So that I think the idea is you could vote at any location, because something in your district might be different. It might be closer something in another district might be closer, right? If you live in Vienna, like the Providence Government Center might be closer than, the other side of 100 Mill or whatever, right? So there's lots of things that are tricky things in there about early voting options that I think we were just, things were simplified when we went to an online vote. But maybe that's something that we need to continue to think about as it's raised, especially with the concerns about security. Mr. Frank Anderson, previous executive director of FCDC. Frank.
Thank you, Brian. Hi, Frank Anderson, class of 1996, George C. Marshall High. Go Statesman. What we're voting on tonight also includes the candidate application, right? Right. So can we put that up on the screen? I just want to make sure that people see that when you're voting tonight, that includes the candidate application, because there's an important component to that, which has been subject of debate over several years. And that component is whether or not the candidate has to choose not to run should they not get the endorsement. We've had this happen a number of times. I know it's not legally enforceable, but it's something that it's important that we have in there, that we can say to the candidate, by signing this, you're agreeing not to continue to run and be a candidate if you don't get the endorsement. You'll find it, I trust. So I'm just going to hand this back.
What was your question?
No, just wanted everybody to see it, make sure that we look at that, because that's what we're voting on.
So I believe that the details, well, I guess maybe the detail that I believe comes through in the rules too, but I don't think I believe we thought about this form, and the details of the form are in the rules now too. So that the understanding and agreement that applying does not guarantee endorsement, that FCDC may withdraw endorsement, that we have rules that must be adhered to, right? And so that's part of it. But I think that the other thing that I believe is in the rules, but maybe I'm wrong, is that it's part of Table A, is that the half refundability of the filing fee. If someone is not endorsed by FCDC, that they will get half of their filing fee back if they withdraw. So that is the mechanism with which that we can encourage people who are not endorsed to withdraw from the actual ballot. I mean, that is true. I don't think it's oh, well, yeah, okay. So maybe yeah, let's see it. Zoom in a little bit. We have had issues with this before, and people seeking endorsements and not completely abiding by these words. But specifically that first part, that you are only supporting the Democratic nominees and endorsees. So if you don't win, then you are supporting the people that are elected and not others, which has been confusing and complicated with slates of candidates in elections. So, but that's a great point. I do have a lot of other hands online. And I don't know when we get kicked out of the school, but I guess we can find out. Diana Smith is next. Diana Smith, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to talk about number 3 and number 6. Number 3, I agree with everybody. I think the process for defining the voting requirements, it doesn't have any guardrails. I've attended the school board meetings since last October, and based on really reprehensible GO behavior that I've seen there, I'm sure they're going to make attempts to insert themselves into the selection process. And so I don't think this risk is reduced at all by what I read. And I'd like to suggest that we define a formal verification validation method before it begins. And I think our method should be vetted with experts. I really think this is important. I also want to question statement 6 about comment about candidates and to a comment Brian made earlier about endorsements. So this last term for our school board was a nonstop aggressive attempt by the Fairfax GOP to obstruct the public school system. I don't think we can afford to lose the experience of those who have been in the front lines. The COVID board, they have experience dealing with these deplorables. Instead of putting them through the exhaustive election activities, those planning to primary an incumbent should ask themselves, did the incumbent display behavior that was against the values of the Democratic Party? If not, why waste our energies with a contest for political gain? And I'd like to suggest, I don't know if this is a formal suggestion for changing the plan, but I'd like to suggest we maintain the last set of endorsements and only have the endorsement process open for empty seats. Thank you.
Okay. Greg, did you come up here to respond to?
Thank you. Another thing that we considered was the immense task of controlling the ballot boxes that would be coming from 9 different parts of the county, and then counting those, and the control of that process seemed pretty daunting itself, and so that's a reason why doing it electronically is recommended.
I guess I will. I have. I'll point you. There is in the rules. There is a committee, a credentials committee that is in those rules. There's a credentials committee that is formed. We'll have 1 member from each district plus someone appointed by the chair, and the intent is for those people to, I would say experts, but people that are capable of scrutinizing those all of the applicants. So some of that we can figure out. Next we have Alex Rodriguez.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Well, not well, but
I'm as loud as I can be. Is that good?
okay. We'll have to deal with it.
All right, I'm sorry. It's the same way on the other side listening to you on the microphone. It's not very loud, but I've got it as loud as I can. But let's get to it. This has been, a little confusing. And my first question is just straight on. Are we talking about the proposal that's placed on the screen to keep it the way it is with all the documentation that we've been putting on the screen and voting it up and down right now, or are we welcoming amendments?
I would. So let me say this. At this point, I think we're just having a discussion about it. Based off of some of the issues that are raised, I think it might make more sense. But maybe we need to put it to the committee. But I think it might make more sense to send it back to the task force to make some adjustments.
Okay,
but so I would like to hear what the issues are so that we can address them, or invite you to the task force meeting if it is such referred. The original idea was to approve what was proposed by the task force.
Okay, but my comment was going to be that it doesn't seem to be ready for prime time, but given the previous I trust that with your leadership and et cetera, that we can carry it off as is, because I trust that you and some on the committee have an understanding of what was intended. And people have talked about the possibilities of games being played so that we don't have it come out the way it was intended. But from the previous experiences we've had, we know, where the traps are. The traps on the Herndon situation was first, sabotage it at the beginning and let's not have an endorsement. And if it comes up at a meeting like tonight and someone just found out about it at 3 o'clock this afternoon, as the school committee person said, you know, you lose that race. But we're past that. We're now saying we'd like to endorse. But do you feel comfortable enough, Brian, that we should deal with it at this meeting? I do not feel comfortable enough, but now I contradict myself. I trust the process. I've seen you guys do the work and it works.
I would feel more personally, and since you're asking, I would feel more comfortable making it right and letting everyone know what the process is, in versus kind of trying to continue to change things on the fly. I know we could pull it off, but it's probably not the right way to do it.
Okay, my final statement is that seeing what happened in Herndon this year, the candidates that were going to win won from the beginning. We just made them do double duty to win. The endorsement would have helped. Thank you.
Next, I'm recognizing Matt Savage in the room.
Thank you. So Marshall High School class of 2022. But I have 2 points to make. Thank you. I have 2 points to make. One, I do agree that there should be a process whereby we can deny voting access to those people who are identified in Van as strong Republicans, those people who have activist codes where they've signed petitions to recall school board members. We can see that. We can see that they're Republicans and they shouldn't be able to vote in a Democratic school board. And then also, I do agree with Greg that we should have an online caucus. I know Arlington has done this without problems, without this threats to verifying identity. I think it can be done, and it's the most transparent process where everyone has the opportunity to vote, not just people who can show up on a Saturday to something. Thanks.
Next, have Marvin Sue Rosenberg.
Yes, one, I would thought, since it's good enough for Oregon, it might be good enough for us to mail the ballots out rather than doing electronically, because that way you know the address of the person that you're sending it to, and it's a greater verification than sending an email address, which can be, as I know from working on absentee voting, can be spoofed.
I think that was considered. I think the expense of that was the primary reason that we decided not to do that. We had to remind ourselves continually through the process that we are not the actual Office of Elections, and that we can't do everything that the Office of Elections does. But we did consider it, and I think we ended up with the idea of that being cost prohibitive. We don't know exactly how many people are going to participate, but I think we would say several thousand. And I think that's probably something that you mail with a first class stamp and probably have to provide returns postage. So right there, you're looking at like what's that? $1.20 per item plus printing. You know, that would be a considerable expense, but something to consider. Karen Keys Gamara, member at large of the school board, is next.
All right, thank you. So can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm one of the people who found out at 3 o'clock today. And so my concern is I'm not, and I haven't really had a chance to read through this carefully, but one thing that jumps out to me is I'm not sure how we clearly identify who we're actually advocating toward to vote for us. If there's a period, when the period ends, when people are registering, and whether that gives us enough time to actually have that outreach, etc. I mean, that's a little confusing to me. So if you maybe could clarify to me who the electorate would be in this particular process.
Sure. So, I unmuted the wrong thing. So I want to say it this way, right? You have to be qualified, a qualified voter to participate in the process, but you also have to be willing to sign a democratic pledge. But the third thing is you have to as we've said, in these current rules, you'd have to pre-register within a time period. And I believe, if my recollection is correct, that it would be a 3-week period where I'm told 2. Require pre-registration the 28th. So, okay, a 2-week period where people could go online or call FCDC or mail it or whatever. There were multiple options for people who could pre-register in that 2-week period was the idea. So you would have to be all 3 of those things to be to receive and I guess also get past the credentials committee who scrutinizes all those people as well. So that is the definition of who actually can vote in this process as it's written.
I guess my concern is there has to be a substantial period of time by which you can try to reach out to those folks who have been identified as being eligible to vote. So I do have some of the concerns that other people have mentioned and have not had an opportunity to thoroughly review this. So I think those are my concerns, but I do agree with my colleague Carl Frisch with respect to not having had an opportunity. And I just wonder, were there any electeds who had an opportunity to participate in this process to provide input?
Okay, I guess I misunderstood your question. The idea, we struggled a little bit with the timing on this because we didn't want so much time as people would forget about it, but also not enough time where we didn't have time to look at the people who applied. So we ended up with a little bit more than a week in between, like when people file versus when people can actually vote. So
I'm just saying, as a candidate, that's not a whole lot of time to outreach to people. And I'm wondering, in the process of reviewing this, whether you got input from people who would be subject to this process.
Yes, we did, but yes, we did. But I don't know if we got specifically feedback on that exact item, though.
Okay, so you talked to school board members?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Those were my concerns, and I agree with Carl.
Okay, let's, I keep doing that.
Rachna Sizemar-Heiser is next, chair of the school board.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'm glad to follow Ms. Keys Kamara because I am also one of the ones who did not see this until 3 o'clock today and found out that it was attached to an agenda, I guess that was sent out last week. And my apologies for not clicking on the agenda last week to see that. There's been quite a bit going on in the school board, so it is a little difficult. So I'll just raise a couple of thoughts that I have. I appreciate the idea of trying to open this up, to more people. And I appreciate all the work the committee put into this. I'm not sure which school board members were consulted as part of the committee's work. I don't think I was, and I apologize if I missed an email about that. But I do wonder with the 250 or 240 number, and I appreciate that it was raised before, but that's still in this, right? That at-large members would have to get 240 signatures. And I remember how hard it was the first time to do that, and that's when we were all meeting in person. And so with virtual meetings, it would mean at-large members driving around the county to try to get double the number of signatures required by state code to be on the ballot. So just something to think about, in terms of it's a different, so it's just something to think about, to maybe to give a little more time if that's going to be the requirement for signatures, since it is double the number for the magisterials as well. The other thought that I had on this, and I really do appreciate all the hard work, but the other thought, I wonder how the process will work to, I agree with Carl's thought about an appeals process, but if there is an appeals process, how the process would work to verify the candidates who are the people who are signing up for this caucus, if there is any, to ensure that they are Dems or in line with democratic values. I think that's an important piece to do, because I will say on the school board, there's a lot of strong, organized Republicans, and they're really looking to come at the seat. So I want to make sure that the people who are endorsed are in line with the values that we all share. So those are my two thoughts, but I don't know if there's room today to address some of the concerns or what that process would look like.
Well,
I'm so used to pressing the mute button on the computer that and unmute that I'm doing the wrong one. I honestly, I mean, there are plenty of concerns that have been raised. I think it'd be better if I personally feel like it would be better if we have more time to resolve it than trying to do it right now as we're approaching 9 o'clock. But there was something you said I wanted to respond to, but I don't remember what it was anymore. So, I think we shied away from putting exact details of how the scrutiny of the applicants would work. I think for some obvious reasons and some not obvious reasons. But I think the desire really was to make sure that we are scrutinizing the people that are applying and not allowing people that are strong Republicans to participate.
Yeah, and maybe I just missed that when I read through it again. I didn't see it till 3 o'clock today, but it seemed like from what I read through it. And again, if I missed it, my apologies, that it was just qualified voters, right? Like you sign the pledge and you're registered to vote. It seemed like there's more than that. There's more to it than that I'm not seeing.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe there's a process. So the question in the room was, is there a process defined for notifying someone who's been deemed unqualified that they are such? And I don't believe it is defined in the rules as they are now. No, they would not be allowed to, they would not receive the ballot and they would not be permitted to vote. I think it would make sense that there would be some notification, but and some explanation, but then is there appeals process on that? Whatever. There's layers of things there. That complication. I think member of the school board, Omesh, is next.
Okay, there we go. I just took a second to get your permission to unmute. Thank you so much. And I know the committee's been meeting for quite some time on this, so I'm grateful for all the hard work. It's good to see everybody right before the holidays here. Just a couple of thoughts. I haven't had the chance to really robustly review this, but I actually, maybe a little bit contrary to my colleagues, think it might be a good thing that this be independent. I remember being on the other side where I constantly was thinking about fairness and open accessibility and keeping it open and making sure, somebody who's coming from the outside has a fair chance. And now, obviously, as an incumbent, I have every incentive to think about the ways it's easier for me and to keep it closed and inside and easier for folks who have been around to just continue. So I don't want to introduce a conflict of interest that's not in the interest of what's more democratic. And I don't know, I think protecting the independence of how we develop this is important. With that said, though, that I think this kind of is serving almost like a feedback session public hearing situation. And then maybe the committee can revisit and rethink based on the feedback. I just don't want to, I don't know, I guess I caution us from involving, folks with incentives in certain directions from meddling too much into it. And I say that against my own interest. Couple of things that stood out to me. One is just in terms of the criteria, I guess I want to understand why we moved away from the firehouse primary, because I know that we hadn't wanted to do it the first way. And I'm fully taking credit for the fact that, yes, I am that candidate who brought in loads of people, and I think our party was better for it. But no doubt led to the quorum challenges that we are working with here. So why did we move away from a firehouse where perhaps, we could have vetted people who arrived right through a van search and whatnot, but then made it more accessible that way? Because I'm worried that it's just confusing with multiple steps and things that people aren't used to, register and then come and all of that.
Sorry.
I haven't learned still. The question was about why we moved away from the previous process was to clarify, because there was a question in the chat about this, a caucus of members, right? So people had to go through the scrutiny of becoming an FCDC member. There was previously no cap on membership. There is a current cap on membership, but it is specifically a changeable count. The committee could decide to change the current cap of membership, to increase it or whatever, right? So I think there's the nuance of that, but I think the idea generally is we still want as many people to participate in the process, as many Democrats to participate in the process. You shouldn't have to be a member of FCDC to have a say in who the Democrats are,
Right.
especially as we're in Fairfax County and Democrats get elected. So I think that's kind of where we ended up, because this is basically an online firehouse primary with, with a pre-registration thing in there. So it's
No, so that's exactly where, sorry, I wasn't asking about the previous process as much as I was what what was articulated as the vision to what we were going to amend it to, which was a firehouse primary. Because now we have that pre-registration piece, which does make it more difficult for people to participate, right? Like they have to be aware of that. And then the election, like not everyone can participate in that election. But if we had kind of a vetting setup where people came, were verified in Van and then could vote, that's more like a firehouse, right? As opposed to making them pre-register and then vote on a different day.
right. I mean, that's technically an unassembled caucus is a firehouse primary, and that's basically what we're talking about doing. I think the weirdness, the oddity of it is that it's online, because originally when we were thinking about this, it was talking about doing it in, like, as you say, people present themselves like they're voting, and we qualify them to vote. They have to sign a pledge that says that they're a Democrat. But as we also realize, that, someone could say that and be lying, and we don't really have any time to think about that if that's the case. So there's trade-offs in all of this, and I don't believe we're going to resolve all this today.
Yeah.
I only see one hand. Unless you want to speak.
Yeah, sorry, Brian.
I just had do you have one other question?
Yeah, it was unrelated. I just really wanted to throw out this firehouse piece because the pre-registration is going to be limiting. I want to make sure we're clear that this is also moving us away from including immigrants and folks who are not registered voters, who are not citizens in the community, but do remain, who are stakeholders. That's a decision, the committee, that's just if that's the direction folks want to head. It's just something I'd be remiss not to name that. And then the other piece
Can I respond to that real quick, though? Because the bylaws were changed to require a caucus of voters, of Democratic voters. If we were going to change that, we would have to change the bylaws, which we have to give notice. We have to have it. We wouldn't be able to do that until March at the earliest, if we're lucky. So if that's a choice that we wanted to make, we would have to change the bylaws to do that. So that's why it was not considered.
No, I appreciate that, Brian. And maybe that's a flag for folks to think about. I mean, party of inclusion, all that's something important especially in a county that's so diverse. But another piece I just wanted to point out, the deadline for registering for candidates is something that stood out to me. If we're going to wait until April, it was like late April, for us to know who all the candidates are, I think that worries me, because I don't know it seems a little too late if our election then is in May, and all the resources that need to be invested and the time and all that. I think it's easy. It's like going to be more effective if we're able to have an understanding of who everyone is in the field. People can have the chance to campaign, to get to know candidates, et cetera, et cetera. That's something I just wanted to highlight. I don't know if that was an oversight, but for your consideration. And then finally, if we do have a vetting tribunal or something, I think I'd love for us to be very explicit about what criteria are valid to eliminate someone, because that can easily turn into the inside group who doesn't like an outside group, or frankly, racism that is just excluding people on assumption without an opportunity for that person or that interest to appeal, right? So we could say if they're strong Republican, if they have certain codes, as was mentioned before, but only if, right, certain things are the case. Because I could totally, Shamily mentioned this in the comments and I really appreciated that, but I could definitely see that being abused, and I would like us to be very explicit.
So to be clear, I mean, because there is some.
I need to stop touching the screen. Because the rules say specifically that you become unqualified if you are not a qualified voter, or if there is clear documented evidence that the pre-registrant has provided false information on their certification form. Those are the only reasons that someone could be disqualified. So what's that? But like the committee must agree that qualification has been met. But maybe we need to add detail. That's what so it's not like there is without qualification now.
Thank you, Brian. I know this wasn't easy.
Marv and Sue have already spoken unless it's Marv instead of Sue or something. And Marv is waving, so I guess maybe it is.
Okay,
Oh, you got muted again. Hold on. Did we? I don't know how that happened.
Okay, now you're in.
okay. Going back to the mail and the cost of mailings, the candidates have a filing fee, and that could well cover almost all, if not more than the cost of mailing ballots to people.
Okay.
And
I mean, it's something to think about. So thank you. I go ahead. Recognize in the room Stella Pekarsky.
Thank you. And every other school board member has spoken, so now I don't want to be left out. Yeah, almost everybody. I see Elaine there. Thank you to Holly for that 3 p.m. text, letting us all know about this. I just wanted to lend my support. We did huddle a little bit, a few of us, to some of the suggestions that have been brought up. Carl, we need the time. We need the time. For those who haven't been engaged and are like, wow, no way anybody could find a way to weasel into the electronic voting. Yeah, I don't know that that's true. And I personally, if I were to be a candidate, would like to know more about how we're going to ensure and verify that what people are saying is true. They are who they are. They're not passing off the link to somebody else. This is a world we've lived in for 4 years. It may work in Arlington. We are in a very, very, very different time and place right now. I think we need clear guidance, whether we talk about it here or it's a little bit more guarded about how you verify these people, how you reject. And I think it needs to be a little bit more detailed than what it was the initial. So just thank you for all your work. I know this is hard. Hopefully it's just kind of a weird year to be undergoing this with everything that's been going on, but we are where we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Looks like Stephanie hasn't spoken yet, has she? Stephanie Sedgwick? Oh, Elaine is next after.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, sorry, my camera's turned off for some reason. I'm a member of the committee, and I want to tell everyone we spent a long time debating all these issues, but I want to speak to the challenges of countywide firehouse in-person primary, in which I believe there is more opportunity for the Republicans to mess with us. If we have 9 locations plus an early voting location, say we have 65 volunteer hours, we would need multiple people trained on van in order to look up everyone and vet them on site, as was done at the primary for the 35th. So we wouldn't be looking at 90 volunteers. We might be looking at 180 volunteers. If the Republicans want to mess with us, they could swarm one of our sites and overwhelm our volunteers at those sites, looking up each person in van to verify their voting history. So I was opposed to the in-person firehouse primary. We have no idea how many people will show up. We have no idea how many ballots to print. We have no idea which locations they'll choose to go to. Many people live closer to a location that's outside of their district. So for fairness, if you wanted them to be able to vote at each location. So I felt there was a lot more opportunity for the Republicans to mess with us rather than having a system in which we pre-verified everybody. So I just want everyone to think about that. This isn't the same as Election Day. our volunteers at Election Day can watch a 5-minute video and be trained in what to do. I was part of the team that verified the signatures for Elaine, and I can tell you that there was a training process involved there, and there was also me sitting with the volunteers as they encountered problems verifying people. So we would have to have multiple people trained at the level of van that I'm at. Now I know we do have some, right? So just think about the complications. Say the Open FPS group decided to send all their people to one site, right? So how would we handle that? We have SWAT teams. I mean, our capacity is limited. So I just wanted people to think about that, of what could happen if it was in person, you know, when we're worried about sabotage. Sabotage online is a lot harder. The people send in their registration. We only need a small group of people to verify them, people who are well-trained, right? It's all done ahead of time. So I just wanted everybody to think about that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Next, we have Elaine Pullen from Grainsville. Sorry,
Yes. Hi, everybody. I just want to add a couple of comments, both as someone that has been a candidate and as a voter. I do hope that we can really take a look at the timing. I think Karen Keys-Gamarra and Ibarra both brought up some good points. The timing of, everyone signing up to vote, so we know who the electorate is, and the candidates signing up, so that we have time as a voter to really understand who the candidates are and who we want to vote for. And also that the people that need to actually campaign have enough time and understand who they need to be campaigning to. So please, if we're going to take a look at this, let's pay attention to that. I've just being virtual, I've been watching the chat and a couple of different comments and things that have come up in the chat. I'd like to react to. It has been a tough time on the school board over the last years. I completely agree with that, but I also feel very strongly that any citizen of the United States can run for office anytime they would like to, anytime that there's an opportunity to run, whether they're going to run against an incumbent or not. So I think it's very important that we, give people the opportunity to, run against people on the school board, even if they are incumbents. And I think it's super important that FCDC endorses one Democratic candidate for this election. It's going to be a really, really tough election process for 2023. And if we have multiple Democrats running for a district seat, for example, and we have one Republican, we don't want to divide the Democratic votes, in any particular district or for any particular seat. So, I really think we just need to endorse one candidate per position. So anyway, that's my comments. Thank you so much for all the work on this, and, look forward to continued efforts.
Thanks. I just want to clarify that the rules do not allow us to endorse more candidates than we can elect.
No, I appreciate that. It was in the chat.
Okay.
We're talking a little bit about that. So I just wanted to address those comments in the chat.
Okay, thank you. In the room, I have John Farrell, who spoke at the beginning, but he asked questions. He did not speak on the motion.
So I'm going to move to recommit this to the task force. It's not intended to cut off anybody from speaking, but we need that motion. And there's a second. And speaking in support of the motion, I'm real concerned about the model here. Under the Democratic Party plan, when we have unassembled caucus, and that's what we colloquially refer to as a firehouse, any voter can vote. Any registered voter can vote. We're deviating from the state party plan with this proposal. I understand the concern about getting swamped by the other side. I get it, but we believe in voting and we believe in everybody participating. So I'm really concerned about that. And the qualification, and somebody is telling me that they're going to proof applicants to vote by looking at the van, oh boy. Anybody who's ever worked with the van knows that thing is completely unreliable. And I wouldn't want somebody's ability to vote in this process determined by that information, because it's terrible. And it's not anybody's fault, it's just the nature of the beast. So I would hope that the task force would take all the comments tonight in consideration and take a look at this. The last thing I want to say, I'm looking around the room, and I know the 800 people, or most of them, who are on the committee. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not look like the electorate. We don't look anything like the electorate. We are mostly old and mostly white. And in this county, that's not true. In the school system, we're a majority minority school district. And to say you have to get 30% or 15% or 10% of 800 old white folk, mostly, just reminds me of the stories I heard back in the 60s in the South. And I don't like the sound of that. So I'd ask the task force to take a serious look at that situation, because golly day, I don't want to go backwards. We made a lot of progress over the last 50 years, and I want the Democratic Party to be leading that progress, not going backwards. That's my, yeah.
The motion is on the floor, and we've already started discussion. To clarify, if there is any discussion now, it is on the merit of whether or not we are referring it back to the task force. And I know there are two hands that are already raised, but you're both on camera. So can you wave to me if you would like to speak on the referral, or lower your hand if you don't want to speak on the referral? Anne Marie Van Atta, do you want to speak on the motion to refer?
As in the second, or what do you mean?
No, it's already on the floor. It has been,
Right.
I guess you maybe didn't hear it online, but in the room, someone seconded the motion.
Okay.
So at this point, the question is, the discussion to be limited to whether or not we are referring this back to the task force.
I just had a general question.
Okay.
About regarding this process and about securing who's participating. I'm a relatively new member. So, and upon joining, when I was looking at joining FCDC, I understood that I would be vetted before joining. I also knew that in order to vote, I would have to be a member in good standing, meaning I would have had to attend meetings, or at least one meeting, I believe. So, I mean, that's one point. If I understand what we're talking about here, we're talking about voting on who FCDC will be endorsing.
Well, at this point, just to clarify, we're voting on whether or not we are sending this back to the task force to make additional changes and to get additional input.
So as far as the form is concerned, and just more of just a general nugget in my head, when we are approved as members, are we assigned a unique member ID number of any sort?
There is a number that is associated with your database. I don't know that it's officially a member ID, but we have a unique identifier for you.
Okay, so if there's concerns about securing who's voting, if we had those numbers provided to us, that would be another line that we could be either bringing. If we go to vote in person, that could be a number that we reference. Although, as I'm understanding it, there's the desire to open this to people that aren't necessarily participating FCDC members.
Right. The process,
which I appreciate, but I understand the form is one part, and I guess I'm hearing two parts of this conversation going on at the same time. But anyway, I was just curious if we have unique numbers, if we do have unique numbers, if that's something that may be helpful to help people who are concerned about an online environment, if that was another level of security that could be provided to make sure that that vetting process is done and those people are cleared. So that if it's a different
Well,
email
I'd
or a
like to cut
different
you
phone
off at
number.
this point because it's not really germane to whether or not we are referring it. I mean, it's a concern that you have. But also just to state the process is for anyone who's a voter, not just FCDC members. So such a number would not really affect that process.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion about referring, or is there any other discussion about okay, I'm not seeing any other discussion. Is there any objection to referring back to the task force? Not seeing any objections. It is I'll say so ordered, but it is done, right? So we will make sure. I appreciate the very long, robust discussion on this. I think it's important for people to understand the process by which we are thinking about doing this time, and we will make a concerted effort to invite people to the task force, because as much as I enjoy this, and I don't know that everyone else does, just because I'm a nerd. So you know, so I would invite you to the next task force meeting, and we will make sure that membership is aware of that next task force meeting. The next order of business is from the National Affairs Committee, and give me a moment to navigate to the appropriate screen. We could get to that in other new business. That we have I want to say prearranged new business, but we will have open. The floor will be open for other new business. Okay, let me share this. Okay, and I'll hand the microphone.
Hi, everybody. Sandra Clausen, your chair of National Affairs. This is going to be some red meat, which we all need and we deserve, because we actually preserved, all of us, democracy. At least the demise of democracy is on pause, but we still have lots of work to do. And but we should be very proud. That red wave, it turned into, as we know, a red splat. So the National Affairs Committee decided, we thought you all needed some red meat. And so we have a resolution here entitled, "The Fairfax County Democratic Committee condemns the extremist rulings of the Supreme Court of the United States and urges presidential and congressional action to mitigate the damage." Let me say, as you probably know, that all resolutions we consider educational documents to help our voters become inspired, learn more about what we represent. They're aspirational. We have no authority, as obviously these are aspirational. They're our wish list. And they express our values and our principles. So that's the purpose of this. And so I move adoption of this resolution.
Okay, thank you. I mean, the resolution is moved from the committee formally, and we do have resolution rules. So I guess at this point the floor is open for if there's any discussion. Oh, okay, it's not necessary because it comes from a committee. Edward Levine. Edward Levine, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate the honesty with which this resolution was presented as being red meat. I'm not sure that we really need red meat, and I particularly am not sure that we need to enact a resolution that says we should pack the court. I think that goes too far, and that will be the headline rather than the 2 pages that precede it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion?
One of these days I will figure this out. Okay, I'm not seeing any other discussion. I would say, since someone spoke against the motion, that we would likely have an objection to its adoption. So are we able to? Oh, there is a poll. Okay, so for those online, a poll will be launched and you'll be able to respond to the poll. Is it already done? I don't see it on here. Well, maybe okay, hold on. Okay. Okay. So the poll is launched online. Now I will say in the room, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say nay. Please cast your vote now if you're waiting. Okay, last call for votes. Okay, the online vote was 51 nays and 41 yays, the people that have voted. Not everyone voted. But in the room, I think it was more than 10 vote difference in favor of the motion. So in the opinion of the chair, the motion carries. Is there, so we're on to other new business. Is there any other new business? It is moved from the floor that the FCDC decides to endorse in the elections for school board and soil and water conservation district for next year's election. Is there? Was I say we had we've had a lot of we've had plenty. We do have seconds. So it is already moved and seconded. So I was going to say, is there any discussion? The resolution that passed, you can go back to your email. You can look at it on the FCDC website for the people asking about it. Is there any discussion? I'm not seeing any discussion, so we can move on to calling the question. Is there any objection? Not seeing any objection. FCDC will endorse in those races next year. Is there any other new business? Seeing no new business, we can move on to announcements. And if you're in the room, you can come up here. And if you're online, you can raise your hand. And I'm going to recognize Maggie Gobwold. My antecessor? I don't know. My successor. As Sully chair back in the day, who is hosting a fundraiser for my friend Holly.
And that's why I'm here. Thank you so much, Brian. If you don't have anything to do, this Saturday night late on December 3rd at 8 p.m., we're having a Night Owls party for Holly. It's at my house. It should be a lot of fun. It's on the FCDC website. And I would love to have a lot of you there. I can't really step into the shoes of the late Marianne Hovis, but I want you to know that I'm trying and that I am going to be giving 2 more fundraisers. So I will briefly speak to those. The one after the one for Holly is going to be on Friday, December 16th, and it is a banned book holiday bash. So this is a fundraiser in support of Stella Pekarsky, who is the Sully District School Board representative, and in support of Rachna Heiser, who's one of our at-large school board members. So it is a banned book fundraiser. It's at 6 p.m. on Friday, December 16th. You may please, if you wish, bring a banned book, and we will donate whatever books are brought to a worthy cause. So I hope that you can make that. But wait, there's more. I am also giving a fundraiser next January for Delegate Irene Shin. Irene has been a great delegate for parts of the Sully district. We're very proud of her. I've been promising to give her a fundraiser for a long time, and finally I'm going to do it. It's going to be on Saturday, January 7th, which I think that's early voting, so I'm sorry, it's the same day, but it's a brunch from 11 until 1 p.m. So it should be a lot of fun. I will again call out some of Marianne Hovis's favorite recipes, and we will have a wonderful time. So I hope that you can come to one or all of those. And I don't know if anybody else is going to come, but I also wanted to remind everybody that on Wednesday, December 14th, it will be the 10th anniversary of the Sandy Hook Massacre. And I would like to invite everyone to come to the NRA headquarters on Waples Mole Road at 10 a.m. for a big rally. It seems like it was only yesterday, and I don't want anybody to despair. We can change this. Don't give up hope. We can do this. So if you're available on Wednesday, please come. Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. Next we have Mark Kennedy, who is the chair of the DPVA Small Business Caucus.
Okay. Try to get my face on the screen here. Hey, how's everybody doing? Listen, folks, we got a great little event. We're just having a holiday party at Della J's on Route 1 in Alexandria. It's going to be Saturday, December the 3rd from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And it is a combined holiday party. So we're going to have Fairfax Democrats Latino Caucus, the Fairfax Democrats Black Caucus, the Virginia Black Caucus, DPVA state level caucus, Network Nova's joining in with us. We're also going to have the Asian and Pacific Islander Caucus, and of course the Small Business Caucus. So folks, we got appetizers for you. Got to buy your own drinks, but there's going to be a whole lot of fun as you support a very fantastic small business in Alexandria, Della J's. Love to see you there. Hopefully we'll see you guys, have a drink with you, and wish you a good cheer for the holiday coming up. 5 to 7 p.m. Saturday, December 3rd, 7692 Richmond Highway. And I've splattered it all on our social media. So get in contact with anyone if you need to get any more information. Look forward to having you. Thank you, Brian.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Happy holidays.
Thanks, same to you. Next we have in the room Saddam Salim, Vice Chair of Finance. I don't know, something like that for FCDC.
Hey everyone, again, this is Saddam. I just want to reiterate the FCDC holiday party, December 10th. It will be at Lake Barcroft, same location as last time. So pending weather, we will have boat rides as well. So please do come for that. We ask if you're going to attend, please do register early so that we can get ourselves used to the amount of food that we need and the drinks and all that. So once again, please attend it December 10th. You can go to Laura Jane's thing and then just keep going and keep drinking.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Adam. And the last hand, certainly not the least, is Chris Falcon, who, there you go. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, I hope I'm not yelling.
I was going to say you're
I
a candidate for clerk of the court, but go ahead.
Thank you very much, Brian. Hi, everyone. Chris Falcon. As Brian said, I'm candidate for clerk of the Fairfax Circuit Court, also a proud member of Mason Dems. Sorry I can't be with you in person. I hope to see many of you at the FCDC holiday party, though. It was great to see so many of you on election day as I made my way around the county, started here in Annandale where I live, and then went and volunteered down at West Potomac High School. And then I finished the day at Oakton High School, where it was awesome to see so much energy for Holly Siebold. So I think we put a lot of her lit in different hands all day long. It was cool to hear from different people that they didn't know about that special election. So that was awesome. And I met a lot of great volunteers, many of whom are not members of FCDC yet. So we have some work to do there. But the past 3 weeks have been very busy for those of us that work in the clerk of the court's offices around the state. Many of you know this, but Election Day is a state holiday, but the clerks are not off. We were asked to be on call in case of any emergency petitions that were filed that might require a judge and a hearing. So myself and the other clerks and my staff, a few others, remained on call throughout the day. Thankfully, we didn't have any to deal with, but that was one of the things that we had to be doing on election day. One of our other statutory duties is also taking possession of all the ballots and the poll books and the election materials after the general election. And I was proud to say this was my 9th year in a row of doing that at the clerk of the court's office where I work. I'm not sure if all of you are aware of this, but the current clerk of the court, John Fry, is retiring after 32 years in office, and his hand-chosen successor is also a Republican, a very well-funded Republican. So I have begun making my calls to that point. You may have received one. I appreciate you guys. You're being very nice when you get a call from me, but I'm going to need your help to help flip this seat. I have 15 years of legal experience here in Fairfax County, and that includes trial work and trying jury trials in Fairfax County Circuit Court. But I'm also most proud of having served as a deputy clerk of the court for the past 8.5 years. So I'm organizing a fundraiser on December 13th at Inca Social in Vienna. It should be up on the FCDC calendar very soon. I'm going to keep my remarks short because I know it's late, but I appreciate you guys. Thanks again, Chris Falcon for Fairfax Clerk of the Circuit Court. Website is falconforfairfax.com.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Chris. Saying last but not least, apparently didn't discourage someone from raising their hand in the room. John Farrell.
So you all thought the election was over, huh? It isn't. In the city of Fairfax, a wonderful young man named Billy Bates got the 6th place for the city council. Unfortunately, the Republican who came in 7th has filed a petition for a recount. There will be a recount on December 15th unless I'm successful on Friday. Put that aside. There are going to be 9 tables to recount this election. The people who are actually the recount officers have to be people who live in the city, but they also need recount observers. And as you can imagine, there are not a whole lot of, finding the observer to watch the team do the recount is going to be hard in the city. Anyone here can be an observer. You don't have to be a citizen of the city. The person who's arranging this is, and Jack, if you can put this on the website, Laura Stokes, S-T-O-K-E-S. Yes, yes. She was the campaign manager for the successful Catherine Reed, who's the successful mayor candidate. Her phone number is 646-327-3549. December 15th, we'll start at 9 o'clock. And hopefully we'll get done, or Judge Askarati believes that we're going to get done in one day, which means it could be a late night. But we need help. The staffing is more than probably what's going to get generated out of the city of Fairfax Democratic Committee. So hopefully if you have time on the 15th to be an observer, that you'd let Laura know. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Not seeing any other hands raised, so I believe that means that there is no further business for this committee. There being no further business, we are adjourned. I'm not even going to bother with a motion. Thank you so much. If you stuck on the computer or stayed in the room the whole time, you get a gold star. I don't know what that means, but you get one. Our next meeting is January 24th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. and will be a hybrid meeting again, I think. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a good night, and I appreciate you. Thank you.